Hello, welcome back to the Double Swing. It's been a rather busy day for all of us. I think our guest in particular has had an absolute nightmare, but for us, really what matters is looking at the games, the Counter-Strike. We're here to preview the Blast Bounty Finals. The online portion has already been completed, but I Am Cologne was the last event we previewed. That event, we had no guest, but we had a replacement for Yumi. That was Maui Snake, and he came in and did, well, what he seems to do best, rather frustratingly for me, and absolutely smash it. He got himself 5 points, both his underdog and one of his favourites making it just enough to gain a point. His other favourite won the entire event. I thought I was in there. You know, when MOUZ upsets Vitality, I think I'm in there. But no, they lose that grand final. And here we are with 2 points to his 5.
Yeah, respectfully, I screwed the pooch on like the earlier stage of Cologne. I was expecting it to go all pear-shaped, and then I was like, oh wait, I actually can't attend the show to do the next stage of Cologne, and I couldn't have asked for a better replacement. Actually, he has saved the whole Cologne run. In fact,
I was back to within 1 point. Now I'm again down by 4. The viewers rather slash the guests, because the viewers have had to fill in on a couple of occasions now. Are actually still in the lead by 1 point, which is fairly impressive considering we've literally had to rely on the wisdom of the crowd for a couple of these events. So thankfully they've been successful. But Trav, thank you for joining us. Second time on the show. And how are you feeling after your marathon of a day today?
Yeah. I mean, we're recording at what? It's 20 past 10 UK time. I've done Big versus Passion UA. Thankfully that was incredibly quick 2-0 for Big. NIP versus 9, 3 mapper. Big versus 9, 3 mapper. So the Star Series qualifiers starting off pretty fun, but I am definitely tired. Doesn't mean I can't talk about more Counter-Strike though. It's the passion. We got to do it.
Yeah, the Passion UK. That's you right there. You've given yourself the second pick overall, which is fair enough. I think that's a pretty comfortable slot to find yourself in. But I have the first overall pick, and I kind of briefly touched on this before the show started. Just an offhanded comment, just talking about how maybe this is the event where things are a little more open. You know, we've seen the real streak snap. You know, the BO1 loss to Legacy for Vitality. No one really counted. I don't think any of us saw that and were like, oh, this is, you know, the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. This is the end of everything. The loss to MOUZ was curious. And I think for a lot of people, that might shake their faith, their belief. But for me, if it took one of ZywOo's worst performances of all time to lose to one of the other elite contenders in a real series, I believe they'll bounce back. I believe they'll still be great. And I think Vitality are still the number one pick and the most obvious choice right now. I'm going to take them as my favourite. I don't want to take the risk of getting fancy with it, getting too creative. I know I'm not going to have another pick until the very end of the show, so I've got a long time to wait before I get a selection out of these underdogs. And, well, no offense to any of those teams, I don't have faith in you. But Vitality I still have loads of faith in. ZywOo will bounce back. He will make his hybrid AWP rifle play kind of style sing again, and he will support his team as much as they support him, or however the narrative that the ZywOo fans, you know, create in their minds works. He will return to being the number one player because he is the best support, best rifle, and best AWPer in the world. And Vitality will win this event. I am pretty comfortable in picking them as the favourite right now.
yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much you can dispute. I mean, they've been the best team this year consistently. They've got, I think I've said it before, but they've got like players in the top 5 in like every role right now. And it's kind of hard to argue that when they've had as much success as they've had, and they've had as much sort of not plateauing numbers, but they've got like high numbers being achieved by each individual on the roster effectively. Yeah, I mean, it's a fair selection. I think it's maybe the counter argument, and something we even maybe slightly discussed before the show, is also just the idea of like Vitality have kind of done most of what they came into this year to do. They got ROPS, they got all these events under their belt, they got the major, they've got their mini era. Now, like, they could continue to challenge that and push further, but I do worry that there can be a deterioration, and it would still be a very successful year. Like, for the rest of the year could be awful, and it would still be a very successful year for Vitality. But given their position right now, it would be a
Mm.
disappointment, I'm sure, in their eyes if that happened.
Yeah,
100%.
I mean, I think the thing for me is like I actually went into Cologne thinking, Vitality have done all this incredible work, but post player break, post major win, maybe a little bit of a chance of a hangover. I actually didn't think they'd. I had just a little inkling that they wouldn't win Cologne going into it. I didn't think it would be MOUZ who would beat them. To be honest with you, I didn't think that a team that has historically kind of been farmed by Vitality just purely because Vitality is like a superior version of MOUZ in every single way in terms of like the team play and everything. I thought it would be just like a Donk going crazy, or like maybe even the Falcons looking amazing as a new collective roster with Kyosuke or whatever. But yeah, I was in a way I was happy to see Vitality not win Cologne, but I feel like it puts them on notice a little bit. And I do think that makes KingT's choice actually better in a way, because I think they're going to bounce back. I think they're going to be super motivated to bounce back, knowing how good the year has been. And I think that, looking at their draw as well, I do think it's pretty favourable for them. I'd say that if it was anyone, to be fair, because they are the number one team in the world, I think they'll be giga motivated to bounce back, and I think they will find a way to win. There's still some shaky moments I've seen from them. I mean, example is like, again, Legacy somehow being their bogey team, taking them to overtime in that game, but it was online, right? So I don't want to take too significant note of it. It's hard for every single top team online, seemingly, with some of the maps that they do drop. So I think Vitality will bounce back. Wouldn't be surprised if they win whatsoever. And talking about the end of the year that Yumi was touching on, I actually think they might continue to win events. I don't think there's going to be any sort of hangover that will continue after Cologne. I think there'll be a significant recovery.
I think the problem is we have so much separation at the moment from the top four to six teams, maybe, depending on event to event, there's a couple more teams that can join that conversation. But outside of that sort of top six, I don't think we have like real contenders or challengers that like actually punch up properly right now. And maybe there's a couple that are waiting in the wings. I think VP, for example, as much as I don't enjoy the direction that organization, the roster is headed, they still have like good pieces, and they sometimes play acceptable Counter-Strike. Sometimes it's just, there's a couple of these teams that are just too high variance right now, and there's a very few that seem to be doing well enough to be a real challenger.
Yeah, for me, I do want to touch on this, though. This is a big narrative point. Apex has said it in his interview that he wants to hit the 10 that Astralis hit. Where do we draw the line, I guess, in our minds, as to at what point have they surpassed Astralis? Because obviously, I don't know how much time you spend looking back, going through old events, going through that year Astralis had, where they won 10 events. The events they played, they weren't exactly the same. Do you think there's any credence to sort of this idea that maybe those sort of Blast Pro series were worth less in terms of legacy, that maybe Vitality don't need to hit that 10 to have necessarily surpassed Astralis, or is that number just too significant?
It's a tough one, because I love comparing eras. I love comparing, who's the GOAT of Formula One, for example, like Lewis Hamilton compared to Michael Schumacher and stuff like that. But you can't compare eras. It is a bit like Formula One in a way, because you're comparing a different category of Counter-Strike. You're comparing Global Offensive era with a totally different meta to CS2, which is which is obviously the current modern meta. And obviously, like with the Formula One analogy, it's like comparing different technical sort of, I guess you could say, instructions to how to build a car. And I think it's very hard to compare. It's fun to do so. If I was to compare it, I honestly would take Vitality as the better of the two. Now, I genuinely, maybe that's a bit of a hot take, but maybe it's recency bias as well. I just think in the modern era, with so many teams that are so competitive, Astralis had what? Is it really Liquid and maybe one or two others in there? So that
Liquid,
that 10...
the slowly assembling, not quite perfected yet. Na'Vi were dangerous, but not quite in their final form. Like, they were strong, they could win events, but they hadn't quite peaked yet. You had the first sort of inklings of this sort of Americans team. The Evil Geniuses NRG roster was starting to come together, but it wasn't quite elite. There were a couple Danish, the Danish squad, I think, that could really challenge them. Like, we had moments where we had a Danish team that could win an event here and there. But 2018 they pretty much locked it out, right? That's
Was 2018 the year that North won and the MSL got the MVP in like a dream hack, right? Was it Stockholm?
I think it's something like that. Yeah.
Think back. Yeah.
But in general, though, like my point is, I think did Astralis have to face any opponents with like generational talents on the team other than Simple? Like Zyru wasn't there yet.
That's about it.
Yeah, but I suppose back then it's very valid. But I just think now you've got Spirit with Donk and the whole team that actually seemingly just gels really well around him more often than not. You've got, I said Vitality was Zyru. You've got Falcons who are trying to build something, and they obviously have gotten quite close to Vitality in a number of big finals, which is quite an important thing to mention, despite Falcons still being a meme for many reasons with their results and the mistakes they make in critical scenarios. I genuinely do think that they've surpassed them purely off of how competitive the scene is right now. And people might say, well, look how... If Vitality are dominating this much, how good actually is the competition? But I think that even the eye test, when you watch Vitality, how good their synergy is, it really puts it into perspective when you have these teams like a Spirit, for example, that kind of on a number of occasions haven't really got anywhere near them. So yeah, I'm willing to take Vitality on that one. Maybe that's my Astralis hating heart coming out. Who knows? I haven't forgiven them for what they did to VP in 2017, but there we are. That's another story.
I think, unfortunately, when you look retroactively back into like old eras or old Counter-Strike, if you ever compare them like for like if you actually go like band for band on gameplay and eye test, almost always the modern game is going to be better. Just simply because we are constantly improving. Everybody that ever looks back and looks back at old Counter-Strike Pro games, you would honestly be surprised and think this might be a demo from like a silver elite or something in the modern day.
It's funny, right? Because I've genuinely had the conversation with some of my friends who have like, some of my friends who kind of got me into commentary in a way, playing ESEA Advanced, right? I commented their game. That's kind of how I started. And they've joked with me that like, look, we'll watch back 2018, 2017 and prior matches, and we'd be in major finals as an ESEA Advanced team if we played back then. So it is quite amusing how
there's
that
a good amount
works.
of delusion in that statement as well, but yeah.
Oh, of course, but but
effectively the standard rises is
it was very valid. Yeah,
there is a certain aspect of that. We always accept that, but there's a quote for me that was key and that kind of shaped my view on a lot of GOAT arguments, greatness specifically, because best, obviously, as we've just indicated, we kind of think is redundant. Like, obviously, the most modern one will tend to surpass the prior era. But it's Gary Kasparov when he's asked about his GOAT chess player, like, opinion. Like, the way he explained how he thinks people should compare eras is not to compare the player to the player if they magically somehow played or anything silly like that. These are cool thought exercises in some way, but realistically isn't how these two should be actually analysed. Realistically, you should look at the player and their field of the era and how much they surpassed that, how much further ahead they were. And so there's cases you can make for this Vitality having surpassed Astralis on that basis too. I feel like occasionally when I have this sort of conversation come up, I see people immediately talking about Vitality would beat Astralis. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Not what I asked. Not what I asked at all. Greatness is shaped by other things.
I guess your logic as well actually kind of ties in with what I was referring to with like Formula One, because Jim Clark was like the GOAT of like 60s. Like, I think he died in an accident in the 60s. But he was incredible in the 60s. And until, I think, very recently, maybe actually he still does hold them, he held some records to this day with how much he beat, the following driver by and stuff like that. So I think it's a very good analogy, to be fair.
I think, unfortunately, if we use that as any sort of meaningful metric, there's nothing that Vitality do that we actually haven't seen before. Like, stylistically, they're not doing anything extremely abnormal. They're not, extremely gimmick-leaning. They're a very diverse, sort of ambiguous entity where, game to game, some of the moves and the playstyle changes so dramatically, and maybe there is something to be said about like their prep work and how they approach games, but it's not as easily tangible as the sort of more default meta of Fnatic, or the Astralis meta, like nade execs, and the way that they approach their default. Like the we haven't got an innovation with Vitality, I think is the main part. And for a lot of things, I do think it is so much easier to replicate than to innovate. For a lot of people looking around the scene, like trying to replicate Vitality actually does become just like a skill issue, because they're not actually doing anything that abnormal that is translatable to results.
I think what we're underrating, if we say that, though, is that to perfect, I think, is even harder. And what Vitality are doing is they've perfected their ability to do everything. Like, their players are incredibly fluid, they're incredibly versatile, and they improvise everything. They're constantly changing it, as you're correct, map by map, match by match. This is a different team. This time they're playing Mirage in the bomb sites. This time they're playing it very aggressive up mid. They're changing up the way they present themselves to the other team. But that's only achievable through this perfection of this like fluid understanding of people's roles and very dynamic approach to how you set yourself up, which I think is in itself not necessarily an innovation, but you could argue for the game of CS is a form of perfection. Like, to truly be unpreppable and to do things that dependent on the opponent is incredible by itself.
Would you say, I mean, there's obviously players that have done this before, but would you say you could argue that Zyru being such like a hard hybrid between Rifler and Orpa is like an innovation as such, or is it just like his personal style? Because other Orpas have done that before.
Weirdly, I'd almost say it's an adaptation. Like,
okay,
I know Zywu has flirted with the idea of being a hybrid before. That was why we had the whole Kyojin situation with Vitality once upon a time, when 6-man rosters were a meta for some reason.
It's a piece of era.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not like he's not flirted with the idea of that before, but CS2 just felt like an excuse. Oping felt a little slow or sluggish, and especially in online play, it felt worse. So why not lean into it, I suppose? And there are some Opers that tried to lean into it, just simply don't have the skill. Zywu, I think, gifted enough and has the luxury of having that option open to him, where others have fallen off a cliff. So I'd say why not take the opportunity? But you're right. It might be the first time that we have an actual Oper that is actually more of a hybrid as a part of any of these mainstay teams.
Cold Zero was a little bit, I suppose, but
yeah, but these are second AWPs. They're not a hybrid
second
AWP
AWPs.
Rifle who is
he's
the
main.
AWP.
He's the main hybrid. The main hybrid. Yeah,
he just does whatever flows, and that's why we've seen again the most astonishing round I ever watched. I've never seen before in my life a star AWPer voluntarily take an AK or an M4 and anchor a bomb site. I'd never seen that in my life. Like, just as the full-on game plan out of spawn, that's what Zywu did.
Innovation.
And I was like, this is mental. But it worked. He was left solo, they pushed 3 guys up mid, and then he locked the bomb site down when the hit came. I was like, this is never before done. I refuse. This has never been done. But we have spent way too long on one team.
That's true.
Trav, you have your pick now. Who do you like to look off?
Fun conversation though. I'm gonna have to take the logical one and just pick Spirit as a favourite. Like, they've just won Cologne. I can't. If you've taken Vitality, I have to take Spirit. They're in a weird state though. Obviously, all the Tanir news has been leaked and everything, and like, there's talk about him obviously replacing Zontix. I think that is an upgrade in terms of pure ability, but like how it works for the team, who knows? Obviously, they'll still be using Zontix for Blast. Zway's definitely not there yet. I'm sure we're both going to get into the conversation quite a lot, or we're all going to get into the conversation quite a lot about how the Spirit team's going to look and how the decision works for this roster. Maybe taking Tanir instead of Zway, never getting Zway might have been the call. Zway needs to get better on Nuke quite quickly. Problem is, he never played it on Namiga. He played it twice, I think, on Namiga, and like 2 very, very quick losses on the map online. And is obviously thrust into some quite difficult roles on Spirit on Nuke. So he needs to learn to synergize a lot better. It was quite obvious just from the eye test alone, watching him play Nuke, that he was kind of a bit lost on occasion of how to work with the team. If he can improve that, I think he's good on the maps that Spirit play that aren't Nuke, like Ancient and Mirage and the like. And they play VP first. I think that should be a freebie, truth be told. Even though VP did okay in the online qualification for the LAN. If there's any team that I think right now can actually win this event, I think it'll be Spirit, because they can. If MOUZ are suddenly there again, I think they can beat MOUZ. Vitality would obviously be pretty tough. We know that we don't know the draws yet, but yeah, I'm quite confident in them once again going deep, probably making a final. Actually, I'll say, but how that news about Tanir coming in will affect them is another question. Dead team buff is not really. You never really know if you're going to get a dead team buff or not. Who knows? Maybe Zontix knew about this possibility of the move before even Cologne. Like, we don't actually know that. We don't even know how Zontix really feels about it because he's so stony faced, right? But yeah, I have to take Spirit as a favourite despite all the news that's floating around about them, and we'll see how they go.
I think the incredible positives for Spirit is that when that triple threat is activated, they actually are just like a tough team to beat, regardless of what team is in front of them. Like, if Donk is doing Donk shit, and Shiro is like, winning clutches or winning rounds or getting, supplementary kills, this team just, it works so well. Like, those are the conditions through which, Zontix thrives as well. When the first domino works, everything else falls into place. I'll get into, I want to talk speculation and that whole roster move and stuff afterwards, but purely from the context of this event, I actually am kind of siding with the idea that, Zontix is just one of those people that shows up to job, does job, goes home. And
yeah,
he is one of, he doesn't have to worry about his crosshair placement so much. He's not worried about his headshot ratio. He shows up, does job, moves on. And I think he'll do that again.
He is an outstanding worker in that sense.
Yes.
Keeps his head down, keeps his crosshair down, and just goes about his business. Doesn't make any silly mistakes. Quite often when you watch a Zontix demo and you think, how could he have done more? How could he have impacted this game in a more meaningful way? It's usually he could have aimed higher and not died. In almost every scenario. Like, he got 11 deaths, 4 of them he could have aimed higher, won the fight, and not died. Quite often, the timing's good, the spacing's good, the actual plays going for is fine. He's usually not very aggressive. You can maybe critique him on maybe he could try a bit more.
That would be mine.
Take an extra risk. But more often than not, I'm quite satisfied with this. And I think this is the part of the Spirit mindset, and it's what actually kind of worried me. I was doing a stream yesterday very impulsively when I saw that Tanir was being sold. I literally launched it intending to be hypothesizing potential places and preparing all these different demos from different teams to be like, what if he's here? What if he's there? And then within 90 seconds, it was confirmed, basically, that it was Spirit. But we're watching these Zontix demos. I'm like, if Tanir gets sort of the Zwei treatment where he's pushed into the same roles, and we end up thinking, was there ever a move even made? What impact can he have? He can still have that impact in terms of hitting the shots, but if he's not going to be able to make more aggressive plays the way he's liked to in the past, where he is more of this sort of, he's a lurker, but he's brash and brazen and will challenge you and will take a duel here and there. If he's not able to do that, sure, we get the extra kill or two. We don't get what we imagine when we think Donk Tanir. It's just like a wasted potential, right? That we kind of come to regret, but for Spirit, this is a great pick. I just had to give it to you. Like, this is a great pick. They won Cologne with Zwei doing his best Magix impression. Aside from the haircut and the fangirls going crazy, he might as well have had Magix on the team, right? In terms of the fights he won, the fights he lost, the positions he played, I was like, I feel like I'm watching Magix again, and I kind of hate it. But credit to them, they can win anyway, because their entire philosophy is built around aggressive star rifle. They really think of him as a star rifle. Goes and wins it. He just goes and wins it. Like, he takes the duels, he wins the fights. We win the match.
I think what's okay. Talking about the tournament done. Now talking about the roster move. I think what's really curious about this to me is that, in Cologne, if you really were picking up Zwei and you wanted to see like a tangible upgrade and you want to see what Zwei was capable of, Zwei would be taking Zontix's roles. You just simply would. And Zontix would take all of Magix's roles. And then we'd see, Zwei flourish. Instead, what happened was Zwei took Magix's roles and Zontix didn't move. And the rest of the team basically does the same thing. What's curious to me is that if you really wanted Tanir, then you would have taken Tanier and you wouldn't have replaced Magix, and you would have kicked Zontix out. This to me like seems more managerial than team led in terms of this being a roster move. I think Spirit see it as an opportunity. Heroic haven't figured out their roster completely since the acquisitions that G2 made from them, and are currently kind of in a weird spot where Tanier has signed on and then gone, well, I don't know if I like it here, actually. And they've got like this, apparently like a weird clause somehow that allows Team Spirit
team clause?
to buy them through Heroic's contract somehow, which is also fucking perplexing. Like, what do you've never even been on Team Spirit.
I get it, to be honest. I actually get exactly why that clause exists. But at the same time, it is hilarious. Like, the whole premise of the situation is ridiculous. Like, a player having a buyout clause makes sense. A player having a favorite team they'd like to go to, this is something that happens all the time in sports. You know, players will have short lists, players will be like, yeah, I want to be traded, but I want to be traded here. And in this case, it's a buyout clause that's specific for Spirit. So when I read that, I'm like, it mustn't be that big. It's $1.5 million.
Apparently, yeah.
The reporting is a $1.5 million. You could have just put that in the contract, and I can tell you this now. There's probably only 2 teams paying that contract, paying that buyout clause in that contract. One's Falcons, one's Spirit. So I'm just confused by all of this.
It's only Spirit because they sold Kiosuke for however much, you know? They're not exact, like, Spirit as an organization, from my understanding, have never really been, like, one that flaunts or pushes a lot of cash. Like, from my understanding, the players on Spirit, you know, compared to someone like Vitality or compared to someone like the Falcons, you know, they're not paying them the same amount of money. But the weird thing is that from the managerial point of view, I think they're just like, oh, well, we've sold a player, gained a lot of money. We need to try and acquire the best talent we can while we have this extra capital. And in my head, this doesn't make any sense from Spirit's point of view. Like, the actual players and the coach, none of this makes sense in the ordering of how they've picked players up. Yeah. I actually don't know if the Spirit management or the Spirit team actually know how to build championship-ready teams. And so now they're seeing, you know, high-value pieces around the market and just thinking, we can airdrop that shit. And, you know, Falcons have done it, fair. But I in a weird way, if they do go through with this move, I'm almost preying on Spirit's downfall. Maybe it's just because I have a soft spot for Zontix, like the playstyle and everything. But I think people underestimate the current style that Spirit play, how on board players have to be to like constantly adapt to what their role is, where Donk is leaving, where he is, how they accommodate. You know, it's not as simple as just like, oh, well, you're now doing that job. Good job. Enjoy. I don't think it's as simple as that. I refuse to believe it will be as simple as that for Spirit.
Yeah, I do think it disturbs the sort of setup of the team in a way, because Tanier is just such a different player to Zontix. I mean, you mentioned about how like you wish Zontix would be a bit more aggressive. I don't think I've ever seen Tanier like hesitant in his life.
No.
And the main thing I've always like just got locked in my brain for Zontix is how like rabbit in the headlights he can play clutches sometimes. He waits for something to happen rather than making something happen himself. He's got a bit better at that. I'll give him that. But that is like balancing Tanier in the team. I don't see as something that will come easily at all. As I said at the beginning, love Tanier. I think his career trajectory is also crazy. You know, from Gun 5, wasn't necessarily thought as the player that maybe should be the big upgrade from that team to go to Tier 1. He was doing amazingly at the time, but like lots of people talked about Zelo, Casello a lot of the time when they were playing together. Then he just, you know, gets picked up by Heroic on like an emergency because of the Nilo situation, and then puts a fucking clause in the contract that makes him want to go to Spirit for some reason. That was fun, by the way. That's a shame it got leaked, because it's really fun to like debate who on earth he would have put in his fucking contract. Is it FaZe? Does he want to play with Carrigan? Does he want to go to G2 or something because he loved an era from G2 from years ago? It is very interesting. But just to end off the point, I don't even disagree with you, mate. I'm a big enjoyer of Zontix, and I thought he's done a great job on the team. I think he was like kind of the the yang to the yin in a way for the team, and he's like the now other than Donk, he was the last part left from the academy team that got promoted. So yeah, Donk's the last one left, and I kind of sad about that. So yeah, I think that firepower is going to be great, but how do they synergize it?
Yeah, the weird part is just that, like, if they wanted Tanir in the first place, they would have just Tanir for Magics, and then they would have done Jouet for Zontics, and the roles would have made more sense. Everything, but now we're not even sure if Jouet is going to get the roles that made him actually half decent in Amiga, and we don't know if Tanir is going to get the same, like, it'd be put into Zontics roles, or if it's going to be like are they going to swap again? Like, I don't know. I'm lost, I'm confused, and disappointed. But Spirit are still a pretty good contender for this event, I guess.
Yeah.
I had to pick them.
No, it's perfectly logical. And I even think in the worst case scenario where he comes in and plays literally the way Zontix plays, in terms of positions, especially, I still think it's an upgrade. I'm
love
a bit...
Tanir, don't you?
Firstly, Tanir lover. Like, I watched his Gun 5 tape and I was like, holy crap, this guy's insane. Because I understood exactly why he'd be a Nilo replacement immediately when that thing came up. So I'm like, he is the same sort of playmaker. But instead of being just that bit smarter that Nilo is, he's actually just that bit sharper. And so he can make those plays because he's just going to bang the heads off. Nilo's going to find the extra half second of leeway that gives him the easy fight. But no, I loved his demos on Gun 5. Really intelligent, but super, like, cracked. And then when he comes into Heroic, massive fan. But look, overall, the reason I wanted this move, and I love this move, is I'm a bit of a skill cell. Like, some people are role cells, and they love having the exact right player in the exact right spot, the exact right, whatever. I just think good players hit shots, win games. And Tanir is a great player, hits lots of shots, wins shit tons of games. So give me that anytime.
But decision making, that's important too.
He's good enough. He's good enough. His decision making is good enough. I'm happy with that. I'm okay with that. You could be a brain cell if you want.
I am a brain cell.
Creating new archetypes of fans every second. But
that's why
fan.
Kerrigan needs to be. No.
Oh god, he's back on this. He's back on his soapbox about Kerrigan.
I know.
All right, Yumi, you have a double pick. Lead us off. Where are you starting?
I am starting. Well, I almost made a massive blunder because I would have picked two teams that. Is that even a blunder if I pick two teams that are playing against each other? It's actually almost it's actually just gamifying it. I mean, first off, I'll pick MOUZ. I mean, I don't have to guard. I don't have to guard my underdog pick because I can just pick it anyway. I am picking MOUZ. Cologne was a bit of a tragedy, if I'm being honest. I mean, the way they played against Vitality, it was insane to watch it because, Torji, I mean, honestly, everybody was kind of life gaming it. But also, Vitality didn't show up in a meaningful way, which, I think they themselves would admit. I think Cyclone on the drafting show today actually said, like, they didn't play the strongest Vitality. But, you watch someone like Torji have such an incredible game against Vitality, and then you realize that they thought that was the final. Like, even if they know it's not actually the final, internally they
the energy, understood. Right?
Yes, they spent all that energy thinking that was their final.
Crowd's energy too. Having been lucky enough to be there, just the reaction after everyone knows the gravitas of beating Vitality. Like no one's clueless on that one in the crowd. So the fact it's MOUZ as well, hometown org, it's Carry on.
Yeah, so for them to have played in that final and play some of the worst Counter-Strike they've probably played all event actually is just heartbreaking.
No.
It was deeply saddening. I don't think that's going to, maybe there is the worry that it'll take them a little bit to shake that off. But they have beat a demon. They've just got a new one to face now. And that's making sure that they remain focused through and through. Job's not done. Because I have critiqued and I've hated the move for ages, but I can't knock how good this team looks on CT sides and just how much of a threat they can still be in mid rounds. I do think recently that has suffered a little bit. I think teams have also given them more respect in those mid round moments, maybe. But it doesn't come together in the same ways as frequently. In fact, it feels like opening ideas seem to work quite a lot with MOUZ in more recent form. And even still, their T side looks a little shaky. So I mean, they're a team that can win championships now, and they've got flaws to fix. But they are a team that have like a lot of cohesion and a lot of capability. So I can't knock them, and they are. I can't pick them over. I can't pick the Mongolz over them.
Right.
It's unjustified.
No, that's reasonable. Trav, I'll ask you this question. I saw this quote saying that essentially, I think it was from Cyclone, essentially that MOUZ are actually more tactical than Vitality, and Vitality play more off the skill, the read, the feel. Do you see MOUZ as a very tactically deep side?
Well, the thing is, I don't disagree with the statement entirely, because they don't have like the out and out superstar that carries them through games. I mean, I feels like every single good MOUZ game, when they look good tactically, there still might be a player underperforming in some kind of firepower aspect or individual aspect, I should say. I think they are quite tactical. And I think that's the main reason why they actually, they've got just like great riflers across the board. Xerxian is starting to maybe look a little bit better in these deep playoff games, but they're still players that do ghost occasionally in these big matches, right? So to get them through that, they do need to have good calling. And I do think they are quite tactical. In general, comparing them to Vitality, considering they just beat them, is vaguely valid. But considering the previous results, I don't think they're anywhere near that level really at all. That was just like kind of a one-off where, as I said before, right, Vitality coming off player break, blah blah blah. I had a feeling they could slip up somewhere. MOUZ being the team to beat them, when as I kind of joked a little bit, MOUZ being like almost a B-Tech version of Vitality with how good everyone can be in their roles at times. That kind of makes sense in a way. Maybe that's why Cyclone said that. I do think they need to win an event again, because they obviously were known for a while as like Pro League merchants, Bet Boom Dacha merchants or whatever. They need to find a way, whether they play Vitality or not, or even Spirit or not, win an event like this, and to prove themselves that they're really like the world number 2 or 3 or whatever they think they are as a contender.
I think they have already proven that, though. I mean,
okay,
Cluj-Napoca, win,
Yeah.
Pro League, Lisbon, Dallas,
And
Cologne, finals.
Okay, let me rephrase that then. They need to win an event and beat both Vitality and Spirit and not choke in the Cologne final.
Right, so they just need to do what they failed to do.
But they do what they failed to do. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's funny.
Yeah,
my statement is a bit goofy, but still, overall,
I think the spirit of it though. Like,
yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah. I think there is something that worries me about them a little bit. Is I do think that Jimpat is underperforming quite a lot, a bit too often in this team. And he was maybe a little bit better online during the online stage of this blast, but like they did with Spinks in a way, if there's an option that arises, I wouldn't be surprised if they took it. I don't know, I have no idea who that option would be, but I wouldn't be surprised if they took it, even though Jimpat's kind of like a legacy player of the organization at this point from coming through the academy, as multiple of them are. There's just something occasionally missing from how Jimpat plays and the results he gets and numbers he gets. And I'm not sure what that is, but it's something. And I think overall, I will agree with you, me. They have cemented themselves in where they are in the ranking, but it's just that extra step, which I'm not sure they might ever get when you've got Vitality and Spirit existing. So that's the issue.
They're just so volatile. You say some players still go missing in, big moments. Sometimes it's all of them.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that they are kind of tactical. I would say they're more intuitive. Like they probably come up with a few game plans and a few tactics that are probably more tailored, but they're a very good team at running off intuition, and they make some great like soul reads and, mid-round reads, and it wins them games a lot of the time. But when that doesn't work, it feels like players shut down. Even Cyclone is like begging them, in the timeouts. It's like, guys, it's happening again. Let's just calm down.
How he talks to Bronnon sometimes is quite like, after post-map when they've just had a bad map, it's like he's trying to recover his soul from like this the
like,
grasp of the damned. Like Bond looks like he wants to, wants to jump off a cliff, and Cyclone's trying to pull him out.
Take his soul out of the river Styx. Like, I can still save you.
Yeah.
Just, you have to believe it yourself. So yeah, I feel like they shut down, and it's weird because it almost feels akin to like Cadian and his heroic, where the team holistically have like good ideas and can win championships, but when things break down, it breaks down very rapidly. And even if the in-game leader is locked in, other pieces seem to fail. The problem essentially is like there are a pentagon of players that are all joined together, but they're all supporting each other. So when it all fails if one fails. I almost want essentially I do want a roster move on this team, because I don't know if in the long term maybe it'll all pan out. But I'm thinking like a year, maybe 2 years for everybody to really get over it. You might just want to upgrade pieces away, and to be honest, JimFat is the player I'd replace. Just simply put.
I feel like I'm surrounded on all sides by people who are mad at Jimmy for selling them something they couldn't have last year. Because when I compare him to every other team's non-IGL bot support, he outperforms all of them. Like, almost all of them, with very few exceptions. Like, there are so many players who do so much worse, yet get so little critique relative to Jimmy, and I'm so confused by this. I need someone to put it into some kind of... Maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I need to hit the whole, like, Act Rock, explain this to me like I'm 3. Why does everyone hate Jimmy so much more than almost any other player in his roles and with his positions? Because every metric I have to analyze it, like, numerically, has him fine. When I watch him play, I'm not mad about it. Like, I don't know what I'm missing that everyone else is so repulsed by, other than it's not as insanely good as it was last year, when he was the outlier of all outliers relative to roles and positions.
That's actually quite a good point, I feel. Just because of how good the previous year was, maybe you compare it, maybe you remember it and think, well, wasn't Jimmy really good on this team? Why is he underperforming? Maybe it's time for him to go. That's probably very valid. The thing is that I had this conversation with Ted. I don't know if he's right or not. Maybe it's a bit of a crazy statement. Maybe KingT as a Tania lover would agree, but he kind of made the point that, like, if MOUZ wanted to upgrade in the future, like, as an example for riflers coming up, he thinks Tania is better than three of the 5 players on MOUZ, and could be a top 20 rifler in the future and would outplace one of them on the team. And like when he was on when he gets on towards Spirit at some point, I was questioning that. I was like, okay, maybe I don't agree, but I also kind of get what you're saying, because none of the MOUZ players are insane, and I do think it's insane to say this, but I think there are some players out there that maybe wouldn't go missing like Xertion does in big games. I'm not saying replace Xertion, but I kind of get where he's coming from and where these pitfalls are for MOUZ. Maybe that they don't all lie at Jimmy's feet. I do agree with that. But I've been a Jimmy enjoyer for ages. But yeah, I'll let you me.
I think essentially the problem is MOUZ doesn't have like a true star, and the way Jimmy was pitched, because of the year he had, and because of his numbers, and because of some of his roles, he was supposed to be the star. Like, that was the way that MOUZ progressed, essentially. When that's not...
I'll let you finish.
When essentially that's not come to fruition, I think people feel undersold. Like, I feel undersold. I was never really massively on the Jimmy train. I looked at some of his roles and some of his positions. I thought, clutch-wise, in-game sense-wise, he actually has a lot of misreads in, like, vacuum rounds. And I don't have a lot of faith in Jimmy to win clutches, which is essentially what I want him to do on this team. So that's why I feel missold. But yeah, for the year, if he is not going to be a contributor in those big moments, if he's not going to step up where his teammates fall down, if he can't flex those muscles at any given stage of the tournament, for me it's kind of a moot position. Like, people thought he was going to be the next Rops, and instead he ends up being a Zontix type character, where yes, he does a lot of things fine, he could do more.
Yeah,
Sure.
just very quickly, I think that's actually quite a good point you touched on there. I feel like when MOUZ do drop, sort of like emotionally, and the players can't pick themselves up, and I very often I'm not seeing that one player that goes above and beyond. You know, it's either all maybe not all the time, but it's either like all sort of dropping below average, or all above average, or like all insane, and it all gels really well together. Jimmy's not occasion. Well, any of them really, but Jimmy is not usually that player that has a really good performance to recover things when other MOUZ players are not.
No, in that sense, he doesn't shift the needle, when things are going wrong. I do find it, well, he's an 18-year-old at the end of the day. We do forget he is, I mean, to ask him to be the emotional, like, rock of the team, and I get it, he's a Finnish guy who hits the stereotypes, right? Like, he's not that loud, and, he keeps to himself. But
Good on the main, but...
yeah, when we find out what we don't know about him, we sometimes regret it. But look, I don't really hold it against him or expect it of him to be this sort of emotional savior, that the one boy that keeps the ship from sinking when everyone's just falling to pieces. But it is a valid sort of critique to have of the team as a whole. They need that they're so desperately, like, weirdly sort of emotionally codependent that as soon as it starts going wrong, it all collapses, and they need someone to be the stoic. I just don't think it's necessarily right to just expect it of the 18-year-old support. And you can argue then we should bring in a more veteran one, someone who's got that sort of demeanor and can bring that. But we always come back to the same old question that I have to ask of anyone whenever they suggest any move. So who is that? Like, are you signing Crims? Is that who you're bringing in? Like, tell me who it is, because I've had this argument a dozen times about, like, the Chopper replacement on Spirit, because everyone hates Chopper. I'm always like, so who are you bringing in? And it's gotten to the point where I say, and you don't fucking tell me Boomich, because I refuse to believe you think that Boomich is the better caller right now.
Who's our emotional support player?
Yeah, who's your emotional support for Jimmy? Which golden retriever of the scene are you bringing in to settle this team's nerves and show up when they need him the most? I don't know who that is.
Well, Ents went for Rigon to fix that issue. Maybe they should get rid. I'm
exactly.
but genuinely though, that is such a good way to sort of summarize it. The issue for MOUZ is they're not good enough to consistently beat Vitality and Spirit, at least back to back. Apparently, where do you go to improve the team? You're not going to get many Sphinxes out there to grab. Like, It's very difficult to really say what they can do next to change their fortunes.
And as a last point, part of their problem is, like, some of their players are exceptional on one side not exceptional at the other, Like, we've talked about this before. Torgio on CT sides actually might be the best AWPer in the world.
He's magnificent on that defense, but as soon as you get on CT side, we need a 6-man roster, and at halftime, you switch Torgio out for a rifler and let them
You've done your job, sir.
Yeah, and let them play as just a 5-man, like, death ball of rifles on the T side, because it'd be so much better.
Yeah, and it's like, Xerxan has, I'd say, an arguably similar problem, where, like, sometimes on T sides he's incredible, but then on CT he'll fall off, or sometimes he'll have a terrible T side, and then on CT he gets it going. These pieces are, like, balanced against each other, where everything just kind of balances out to mid. Like, I'd say maybe not mid. Maybe that's being
they've only made top 4 at every event since Katowice, right?
Above mid. Above mid.
Yeah. They're an exceptionally above average team when it all balances it out, but they're not exceptional.
And because of that, it's impossible to say what they should. Sometimes, like, impossible to say what they should do to make them better.
Yeah.
So
and also, is it even necessary? Is always my question.
Well,
if your MOUZ is an org,
they did make the right roster move, though. They did kick Shue, and they did bring Brolin to in-game lead, which has led to a very successful year for them. So
crazy.
Yeah. Honestly,
everybody thought they were crazy.
If you come out this year as MOUZ, as the owners of that team, you're like, Jesus Christ, what a coup. How do we fucking manage this? Like, you know what I mean? We played the Cologne final on the year we kicked our prodigal IGL, replaced him with Vitality's leftovers, and let a random Swede from the Krieg era just take over the in-game leading, and it somehow worked.
Who apparently wanted to in-game lead in, like, 2018 in one interview.
Yeah, when he was 16 or whatever.
yeah, even younger.
It's madness, but hey, I do think they can be quite chuffed with this. Yumi, second pick.
I guess I'm playing the game, but I'm picking Astralis just because I
Fuck.
believe it. Just because I believe in him. And maybe I am gamifying this slightly because I'll have a guaranteed semis, but I just feel like the highest value pick just in terms of actual trajectory. VP might be getting there slowly. Liquid, don't kind very very shit a lot of the time, but then like, oh, Naf's kind of back now. And when I look at the rest of the field, Astralis seemed like the one that actually can feasibly scale up. I'm a big Stare enjoyer. I'm actually a big fan of what Hooksy has done so far on the roster. Stown and Yabi are more an asset than liability most of the time. I will say I don't get as much of the device flavor that I thought I would on this roster, but maybe that's also just a sign of the times in CS2 where I just have to, I kind of shit on Shiro and like some of these other defensive pieces for not being active or not giving me enough when you've got pieces like Modesty out there. But Modesty also just kind of shits the bed at times, and so maybe that is the more comprehensive way to play the AWP in the modern era, and I just need to get with the times. But yeah, the rifling core looks great, and it's kind of crazy to think that at times I think Stare, who was supposed to be like their support rifler, actually might look like mechanically the best rifler on the team in moments. So I'm a big fan.
You're a Stare holder.
I am a Stare holder, and I will remain one until he gets kicked inevitably, just like Buzz.
Oh, he's not getting kicked anytime soon. Lord, I hope there's got to be some deity out there looking over us. Like, please.
I've seen a lot of really bad roster moves. He would be
from Astralis as well. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Look, Trav, I don't know where you stood exactly on the Hooksy sort of arguments. It was a long, drawn-out, bitter saga with G2, especially amongst the community more than anyone else. He seems to be kind of fine with everything. I was a big fan of him on Copenhagen Flames. I know you're a based tier 2 degenerate like me. You might have had different thoughts on him based on which era you were comparing it to. Like, thinking about his G2 days versus the Copenhagen Flames days. Different memories, different emotions are evoked. How much of a fan are you of this version of Astralis with our God King Hooksy?
Honestly, it's probably the most strong word, but likable Astralis in quite a long time. I mean, they're actually looking like they're trying to improve. They look like they were just stagnating for so long, and I wanted it for ages. Like I called it for maybe 2 months or so before he joins. Like Hooks, if there's one team Hooksy's going to come back and join after being out in the wilderness for a little while and just recovering his mental and everything, it's going to be Astralis. It just has to be. Like Cadian was obviously like completely. He reached a point of no return. That was just not going to last in any stretch of the imagination. Hooksy was there. You have to go for it. And knowing the synergy that he's historically had with Yabi, obviously, in the Copenhagen Flames, we wanted to go in that conversation. Like, there's something there that can activate him. Yabi's looked amazing, honestly, in general. I think he's mentioning that Stare's looking like one of the best riflers. I think Yabi occasionally looks better than everyone on the team. He has those games now, Yabi, again, that he used to kind of have on Copenhagen Flames with Hooksy and everyone on that team. I do think Hooksy, like, he's fixing Stown somewhat, but Stown isn't the player that he still once was when he was at his peak in Heroic. But he's getting there. There's something there that's like bubbling under the surface. And when it comes to device, I actually kind of agree with Yumi in the sense that he's been a little bit underwhelming, but I think that's just the reality of CS2 right now. Like, we know device from just being the most giga consistent player that maybe has ever played Counter-Strike in the entire history of like Go. And that can't necessarily be replicated unless you're, a modern tier superstar like a Donk or a Zyra or a Monazi in, maybe not even Monazi, in CS2. So I think Device is just doing enough right now. I for one hope he obviously stays very healthy as well, because his health has always been an issue on the team. That clearly impacts his individual. I'm sure it has and does. So if he stays healthy, then I think that the whole team as a collective will be good. I was quite happy with their group stage. I actually managed to watch a couple of their games. I mean, they beat Na'Vi, right, in that qualification match. Sure, it's Makaze playing. Sure, he played okay, acceptable in Cologne, but it's still new, and Na'Vi looked pretty messy overall, I think, in that particular BO3. Astralis took a good A good opportunity to take advantage of that, and Device played amazingly. I think there's still a long way to go to put them on like. I mean, I'm not going to say vitality or spirit level because that's a whole different story, but like MOUZ level, we need to see a lot more consistency. They do occasionally just get farmed by like a VP or Navi level team and just look like absolutely nowhere. But if Hooksy stays and they give him his fair dues, I think it's a team that could contend for tier 1.5 lands seriously. They got owned by Tai Lu in that Fissure event, but I can forgive them for that, it being first event back off the player break.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm weirded out because the whole Device thing, you're right. When you look at the average number, you're like, this is Device. And then you actually watch game by game, you're like, holy crap. He violently oscillates between fantastic and awful. Like, who is this guy?
Yumi, do you remember seeing his movements? Like some of his movement in some of the games we co-streamed, it's like, wait, this is Device? It's like someone's taken over his PC. It's like you used to know him for like these slick maneuvers, like that clip and cologne, like around default on Inferno. Like it was just so clean and smooth with it, but now it looks so stop-starty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's strange because some of it feels CS2 related, but then other times it's just like, wait, he's actually maybe it's just getting old.
Pasha's returned.
Maybe he's just getting old.
Yeah.
He's been doing a lot of curls, so now he's just Device biceps.
Yeah.
He's still hitting the AWP shots, but he can't he can't move around a bomb site to save his life. But no, for me the thing that I liked from the Hooksy sort of period so far is mostly what you kind of touched on, is the Yabby of it all. Because he was able to unlock so much out of both Yabby and Zyphon when he was calling on that Flames roster in very different ways. Zyphon, he basically would walk him around like his pet sniper and just push him into contact fights very slowly, or give him a quick, easy trade to get him going in a round and then get him out in space, as I call it, just taking heads-up fights with rotating players, just aim v aim type stuff where Zyphon was outstanding. But Yabby was kind of left to float, and he had moments where he could just go and playmake and had a great deal of confidence placed in him to be that playmaker. And I feel like there are some aspects of that, especially on the T side, that have come back with this new Hooksy Astralis. CT side, they've made this change where they've pushed him into an anchor, which initially when I saw that comment and then I started seeing it in game, I was like, is this the right option? And then I saw him hit a few shots. I was like, okay, if he feels comfortable doing it, clearly that's what's best for him. Because what was happening before, prior to the Hooksy move, was just the death of Yabby. Like, I was this close to like tweeting it, making a whole video about it, just cut him, find any old Dane and put him in there, because at this point it's been a travesty.
Bring back Borup.
I won't go that far.
I chose the worst Dane to try and throw you off.
And listen, as much as we hated that guy, he did a job. So
a job.
Yeah.
One of the jobs of all time.
He came, he did work, he went home.
He was a player, and he had a high headshot percentage, which tricked a lot of casuals into thinking he was a great aimer.
The promising thing about Astralis, though, is that from all the in-game leaders that they've had, like, this one actually seems like the play style actually does seem to translate into round wins. Like, it seems more focused on goal of win rounds instead of how do we set our stars up to succeed. Like, the Blame F Device era was pretty much just like, you three, go ahead, we're gonna trade you, Device and Blame are gonna eat up all the kills. And it's like, sometimes they would get kills, and it's like, great job, guys, you did a fantastic job. Other times it was, wow, how is Blame going to get another 3k this round?
By saving exit
yes,
kills.
Spoiler, he's not,
Yeah, essentially. And during the Cadian side of things, again, the translation of, like, Cadian calling from not the AWP, but then also sometimes pushing into the secondary AWP, kind of like, see, I've still got it, but Unk put it down.
Yeah.
That like, this does seem the most tailored to actual success, where, like, we're talking about putting pieces in, like, semi-optimal spots. We're focused on executions. We're focused on getting into sites and in round winning positions, as opposed to how best to accommodate our star players. It just seems like a philosophy thing. And I think Hooksy has had the experience before of, teams actually just not buying into what he wants to do with the team. Like, the reason I was critical always of him in G2 is that it felt like he compromised too much on the team if you wanted Hooksy and that design to work. It basically made no sense why he was there. He was just basically vibe calling when he was actually a caller that was maybe better at, using pieces a bit more directly. And I'd argue, Astralis this time are actually giving him that room where other orgs maybe failed to.
Yeah, I mean, closing thoughts. Only one IGL replacement actually made sense that was available to get. They got him, and he's actually making Astralis, or giving Astralis an identity again. So, only a positive from me.
Make Astralis great again.
About to say it. It's perfect. It fits the initials. Get it on a hat. It's the right color, too. I would love to see that. But, Trav, we're moving on to you. You have an underdog pick to make, and you have some options. I mean, look, I'm just saying it now. Naf has been so good online.
No.
The way he played against VP Prodigy, I mean...
No, leave off. It's a boring pick, but it's Aurora. I have to take Aurora. I maybe could have taken VP, low-key, because I think, maybe there's something there, but I'm still just not sold on the team. There's one team, I mean, they play Mongolz, by the way. Mongolz are beatable. So that's why I'm taking Aurora as well, just in general. Xantares has come back in, slotted back in, like he never left, as expected. I never expected, the world from Aurora when they're playing with xCloud, despite how good xCloud is and deserves his spot back on Heroic. Different story. But they're not there, really, Aurora. They're not, tournament contenders. They're not going to really be pushing in the S tier tournaments. They might be contenders from these tier 1.5 events if they lock back in, like fissure tier type thing. But they've still got that base level, kind of like a better 3D Max with more firepower. They've got like a base level where they can contend in these events and not look like they embarrass themselves. And with Aurora's case, unlike 3D Max, they've got the X factor of Wicadia, Jota, and Xantares who can all pop off. And Woxic just being incredibly stable. I think Major's calling has been, lots of people criticize it. I still think it's fine to activate the pieces he's got. And it's kept them relevant at this level for a long period of time now. As I said, I'm not over the moon to pick them, but it's just better than Liquid. It's better than VP, and I like them more. I don't know if you guys can elaborate more on how you feel about Aurora right now. I just feel like they feel like a nothing team at the very tip top of tier 1.5. But yeah, I don't know.
That's nothing is. It sounds harsh, but you're kind of right. Like this team seems to be slowly, what allowed them to be so dangerous, and what still technically exists, but we've come to be less and less afraid of as their game plan has become more and more figured out, and people are just understanding what they're doing, and it's not that hard to play against in the end. It's becoming like they're a dog that's losing its teeth. And you still think, just in case he catches me with that tooth, I might lose this game. But you're not afraid of him actually tearing a big chunk out of you. That's kind of how I feel about Aurora. They are still a threat to just about, maybe they upset the Mongolz. That could happen. That's not impossible. But I have zero belief in them. Yeah, I have zero belief in them making it all the way through or winning this or making anything, making any noise in that semi-final should they make it there. But it's a strange spot to be. It's like there's a state of sort of limbo that teams enter in sort of like American sports where they don't tank because of, the lack of relegation, but they don't win enough to be a playoff team. And so they end up just stagnating, never getting a good enough draft pick, but never really being terrible. And that kind of feels like Aurora have slumped into. If they get the right performance from Xantares, from Wicadia, these guys who can make those crazy plays, yeah, they can upset someone of the Mongolz ilk, but when they come into a LAN map against Vitality, Spirit, MOUZ, hell, Falcons recently, I don't think they're winning, and they're no longer that sort of guardian for the top sort of 5 or 6 either, because in a matchup with Furia, do you now believe in them still to beat them every time? It's just, it's becoming...
No, because they've lost Anubis out the pool. Another thing.
Another detail, but it's becoming more and more... they're becoming less and less intimidating, realistically, is what I'm coming at. And I'm still think they're going to be interesting. I still think there's always the chance for a great Xantares POV, but I don't think they're winning anything anytime soon.
Yeah, they're kind of yeah, they went from almost gatekeeper to being leapfrogged by others within that category. You know, I would say Mongolz and Aurora were probably at the same level 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe even towards the end of last year. But then, you know, the Mongols just seemed to actually have improved in their LAN exposures. And, you know, Aurora have gone through some roster moves, sure. But I think it's just evident that, yeah, there's almost in like weird issues that they're having behind the scenes. Like, they seem a little bit disgruntled. Then they've never basically won any of these events as well, which I think is another major problem.
Yeah.
Like you said, they're good enough, but they're not good enough to win. But then we have, you know, players complaining about at the start of the year. Let's not forget the narrative around Aurora was actually, hey, we're going to too many events. We want extra time to take breaks, and you know they're not a fan of the workflow, and can be sympathetic to that, sure. But in order to be a professional and, you know, strive to be great and make these great achievements, you actually need to make these sacrifices. And it does seem like there's almost this dichotomy of, you know, whether or not they can put that aside and succeed, or just essentially stay where they're at.
Yeah, just very quickly on the map pool conversation as well. Like, obviously, I just touched on the Anubis thing. That was, I think Major came out in an interview and said, "What do Valve have against me?" Because they removed Vertigo, where Cadia made a name for himself on that map in a way, and now they've removed Anubis. At least they do have Overpass. Historically, it wasn't a great map for them in terms of their T side, but even like the old Internal Fire editions with, like, you know, Major and Xantares and a couple of the other pieces they had for a long period of time, like Woxic as well, before they became consistent tier 1 contenders, at least they had something on Overpass where they could contend. It was an okay T side and was always a very, very strong CT. Maybe easy to have a strong CT on Overpass, but it was very, very strong. I remember from historically. So that's something. It's in their pool. It's not like they've lost a pick, but they haven't lost a map that they can play well. At least it's a small silver lining.
Yeah, and look, we said it. As much as we are down on them, it's not impossible they win this series with the Mongols. As an underdog, that's plenty. So, yeah, you'll be rooting for that. Mongols are the one favourite we didn't pick, so we all knew this was an option. This was open to happening. I'm going to round out the show with our final pick here, and I'm not exactly left with some of the all-time heavy hitters, am I? Oh, Lord. You know what, Yumi, I might have to steal your girlfriend, or your crazy ex, rather. I might have to go VirtusPro here.
It's the best choice. Oh, no.
Yeah.
It is the best choice.
Yeah.
I'm going to start this off just by, honestly, I just have to, kind of shit-talking Liquid. I don't think there's a chance in hell that they even come close to beating Vitality. Like, I don't care what these online results say. I mean, firstly, the first of those online results was to lose an embarrassing game to VP Prodigy, where they were outclutched, outmaneuvered, out-aimed in a lot of cases by literal children. That was a real issue for me.
I hadn't heard of any of them, by the way, which is crazy for me. Is like nor you, I suppose. Like,
no, for me, I heard this game was happening because someone in my Discord was like, "Oh yeah, who else is going to be hate watching Liquid, hoping they lose to this VP Prodigy team?" And I went through the VP Prodigy team. I was like, "Oh, I remember when this group of names was mentioned somewhere, but I never actually watched a damn thing of them." And they had this one AWPer who had a nice rating. Their IGL is a crazy fragging numbers. And I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever. We'll see how this goes." And after map 1, I was like, "Oh fuck, oh fuck!" Like on Dust 2, you watched it. It wasn't like VP Prodigy were just hitting crazy shots. They were out execing them. Liquid, half their deaths, they were blind. I was like, this is a team just getting outplayed. Then Mirage goes back to normal, but the nuke, I did a full breakdown of it just because almost every round they lost, they should have won. Like, Liquid had advantages. Liquid had winnable clutches. They could have played off each other better. They could have done so many things right and just closed it out, and they choked it every time. And there was some of the most baffling lapses in communication I've ever seen from any team, let alone a team that's allegedly tier 1 and has players who've received, HLTV top 20 nods on several occasions. The the next chosen IGL as well on top of everything, and yet they couldn't calm basic positions. Like, this was horrific. So there's not a chance in hell that I believe that Liquid then, who go and barely scrape by Ecstatic and beat Furia, are magically fixed. And when they come to land, they're going to upset arguably the greatest team we've ever seen. Not happening. So let's talk about VirtusPro, who have had their own little miracle run. Let's be clear, to be fair to Liquid, I'm not saying VirtusPro have been solid for the past 6 months and have been really stringing together victories and making just the right tweaks to their roster to continually get better. No, they've been shambolic. They've made very little sense, and every time they've had positive results, you've gone back and checked and been like, they've actually not really changed their game plan a whole lot. Their style is still the super slow, agonizing, like, I call it Cemetery Doom. Like, again, very niche metal reference, but it's just painful to watch. And you just got to wait for it and hope that at the end of the day, when they've got no time left to play with no wiggle room, they hit the shots. Online, here it worked. At the major, you know, they kind of had that stage 2, was it? Yeah, stage 2 run where it think, oh, this could be a realistic style of play they can adopt and can make work. I'm not going to pretend any of that hasn't been on my mind with VirtusPro. But I'm just going to say this. Their phase win felt more legit than anything I saw from Liquid. And they've got enough of a distinct, kind of frustrating, like, sort of style to their play that could upset a Spirit who are not taking the game as seriously as they should. Could be caught with a bit of a post-championship hangover. We already saw a bit of a sloppier, not as sharp donk in the online stage, potentially. I mean, I'm grasping at straws here. That could lead to them sneaking a win through. So yeah, this is a battle between two of the worst, most frustrating orgs of the last sort of year. But I think VP have the edge for me, and they have the slightly more winnable matchup.
Yeah, it's annoying because they've, again, kind of retained relevance enough to not... Like, they have been okay. They're just not... We haven't seen the improvements people thought that were going to happen to this team, like an unlocking of Flame and, you know, faster play and all this. In a weird way, it feels almost akin to the Cloud9 changes, where it was like sheer exile, then Nafany's gone and replacing the in-game leader. It's like Cloud9 actually kind of played similarly for a while. It's weird to see that VP are kind of stuck in the same way. But I will say, like, I was on the Flit hate train for quite some time.
You were.
He has
on this show quite vocally.
Yeah. He has gotten better. Like, genuinely, he has gotten better. Yeah. And I don't know if that was just, you know, the soul sucked out of him at some point or another in his career.
Yeah.
Was, I can't have you, bashing me on the podcast.
He DMs me on Twitter all the time about the show. Like, specifically, he doesn't want to DM you directly. That'd be, like, kind of threatening.
Yeah,
you might see you in an event, you know, but he is listening. He knows. Be nice.
No. But he is improving. Like, in general, I don't see as the frequency in which he used to just like whiff. For like a star rifler, it was diabolical. But he's doing it less. So, you know, that's a positive. I can't take that away from him. And it does seem like Fame is trying to be more of an influence, like more of an active piece on T sides. He's trying to be more fight forward on CT as well. You know, I do think there is an element of their game that's kind of being achieved under the electronic umbrella, so to speak. But it's not much. You know, we're not getting massive leaps in playstyle changes. It's just like, we're getting an extra 10 or 15% in aggression or, you know, clutch factor or whatever that we didn't have before.
Yeah, they're still just deeply unfun, though. Like, that's the issue with VP. I don't know. Like, listen, big Perfecto enjoyer here. Great anchor player. Legend of the game. Major winner. I'm willing to give him more time, but he's definitely... The problem is, if you're going to have Flit whiffing a little bit, which admittedly you said he's gone a bit better with, if you're going to have Electronic doing the thing that he does, will either hit an instant headshot, which is an absolute banger, or whiff 20 bullets in a clip. Like, it happens so often, it's unbelievable.
It's so relatable for CS2, though.
It is so... Yeah, it's valid. But, like, you know, there are some players that manage to avoid that somehow. Like, obviously, they're amazing players, but Electronics from a different ilk, different era. But like, if you're gonna have 2 or 3 players like whiffing a little bit, and Icy being a little bit just mid in general, I think Icy's doing his job. I don't think Ice is doing badly, but yeah, it makes me wonder what other generational player they're just gonna pluck from like because they have done this a couple of times, but if they're gonna just pluck someone from tier 2 again, with like they did with Icy, and just be like, look, we think you're really good. We think you could be an upgrade. Is Grix available? Like, it's a crazy thing to say. I don't necessarily think he's worlds better than Icy, but I just need an X Factor player on VP that I haven't felt like I've had for a really long time. And look, I like they had Flammus as an X Factor player, and Electronic fucking ruined him. Yeah. So. Like,
wait, you mean we have to throw flashes for you to entry? What? Why? Just go!
What they've done to Flammus just hurts me deeply. I know it's old news at this point, but like, no, if you're not going to have an X Factor rifler, and Flit is not going to be that all the time anymore, even though he's trying to, he's improving a little bit. Like, I want it to be your Orpa instead, and you go for someone a bit flashier than Icy. But they exist. They exist in the same way Aurora exists. They don't exist in a terrible manner. They're an acceptable professional team at like tier 1.5 level. So, yeah.
Listen, to be honest, it might actually just be that VP, Flit, Fame, these guys don't play enough online matches. Like, let us think about the best times where Fit and Flame have operated in their careers. It's when they had this ratio of almost
K23.
Like they had, yeah, I mean, essentially like K23, Forza, like they had this ratio of like 8-2 online to LAN matches, and it actually seemed like things worked when they translated things into LAN, even when they were at VP. Like they had a better ratio of online to LAN, and we didn't necessarily call them onliners because they actually did do well at LAN, but they still had high frequency of matches on the online portion. So maybe in a weird way, they almost just need the online games to be onliners so that they can be better LAN players as well. That's
the most roundabout logic I think I've ever heard.
They're just going to be so shit on LAN when they play the Mongolz that, it's all nothing is sacred. Or when they play Spirit, sorry.
No, we'll see about that. But there was a brief part. You mentioned you need a playmaker, you need a spark. There was a second. Well, a few minutes after Tanir gets sold to a mystery team. And even when I hear, this team had a buyout clause, especially for them, and I'm like, VP
Electronic
is that kind
his
of
idol.
org. No, but also VP is that kind of org, right? They have a lot of fans. They've existed forever. Like they've had, they're the Polish lineup famously, but they've also been historically home to a lot of great Russian players, CIS players, and talents. I was like, please. I think that'd kind of be awesome if Tanir was on this team. Now, of course, they could just ruin him the same way they did Flammers, but I like the idea for a second. But just to really illustrate the point of how glacial, like how slow this team is on T side, the player who dies the fastest per round on this team is Electronic. His time alive per round is 1:17. That is like in the top 3 to 4%. Like he is still alive longer than basically every other pro who's not on VP. And the slowest ones are almost a full 1:30. Like these guys just don't do anything. It's frustrating. And yeah, we have the numbers to back it up. These guys just refuse to play with any sort of tempo. And they've really suffered for it. More than they've benefited. That's what the real conclusion we have of it is. Like they've just not had the right mid-round, the right read, the right whatever it is that made sort of James' version of this sort of idea work. They just don't have it.
So frustrating, because part of the reason they won the Rio Major is actually just because they didn't play like that all of the time. They actually they were in this weird microcosm of their playbook where they were playing very up-tempo Counter-Strike from Rotterdam into the IAM Rio Major. Like both of those events, they played actually up-tempo Counter-Strike so many times, and then they just went back to playing slow bullshit for the rest of the year. And I just don't understand it. Like, who is making this decision? Why?
Yeah, I don't really follow I'm going to be honest.
I don't even think it's James' fault anymore. Like I blamed James for a while, but now I'm just not even sure.
I mean,
It's Fame, the secret IGL.
Paravision's current style is actually like now they've
Dude,
like
that's
moved
what
on
I'm
from
saying.
Kicker. Paravision's current style, James, the calling is actually like, really dynamic. I feel like with the current players he's got.
Yeah, no, it's baffling. I just don't know, man. I wish we could get more out of these pieces. There are some really talented players here.
I wish VP wasn't in these podcasts. I think every single time we have a conversation about VP, and it's like we have to say the same shit about how we're just uninspired by them. But there we are.
They keep refusing to drop down the rankings enough. They're still getting the invites. If they're to play open and close qualies and all that other nonsense, we might not see as much of them.
That's what I love about this Blast Bounty format is, listen, as much as it might be a little bit long and there's like a lot of games going on because it's like 32 teams online, whatever, at least it gives us an opportunity moving into the playoffs to shit talk all of the Hunter teams because they're just not as good as the favorites. This event actually has shown so much that the current state is we do have like a divide essentially of like the good teams and the, getting their mediocre teams at the moment. They've had like one upset, if even that. I think this whole bounty.
There was 2 bounties not claimed, but
Yeah, I think it's like
happened.
1-2 games or something, and it's like it's a 32 team bracket, so it's kind of mental that for all of the bounty payout that could have happened, just like two or three games.
Trying to find
there were maps drop one, right? I mean, it was TNL taking a map off of Na'Vi, it was Passion UA taking a map off of Spirit, and it was it OG taking a map off of MOUZ, I think? Let me look, where is it?
Yeah, OG took a map off of MOUZ as well. So in the first round, there were no upsets from what I can tell. In the second round, VP upset FaZe, Liquid upset Furia, and Astralis upset Na'Vi. So those were the 3 upset games, and none of them were in the first stage. Now, I can always make the case, like I've had this debate before where people have, pushed back on the idea that I think sometimes tier 2 teams get a hard done by never getting the opportunity to face good rosters. But the question here is, TNL took a map off of Na'Vi. They played them once. They spent the entire year, against shitters, beating tier 2 teams, winning tier 2 lands, but never really getting that opportunity. And they straight away took a map off Na'Vi, given one shot. If we played like
tier 2 team of the year for that.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
The most frustrating thing is, Yumi.
Yeah. Also, an Amiga that was like, in its weird current version, like almost BG2 as well. Like
the risky Bob carried an Amiga.
That was crazy.
That's an insane thing to be thinking about. So yeah, there is some talent down there. I mean, Ents also took a map off Mongolz with this new version. Like, this is crazy. But yeah, we'll see what comes of this. I think Pro League Stage 1 is going to be one of the best events of the year for Tier 2 degenerates like myself. Like, holy crap.
Wait.
I'm going to have so much fun with that one. Shall we wrap up the show with a quick discussion about what the state of the Mongolz is? Because no one picked them. Now, that makes sense. You had the big 3, in a way, available. But Mongolz aren't quite there yet. Trav, I mean, we hear all about Yumi's takes on the Mongolz, so we'll let you lead off on this. What do you think is next for the Mongolz? Like, how close are they to taking that next step? What has to change? Like, what are your thoughts on this team?
They just need to stop trolling rounds. It's as simple as that. Because they get into so many good positions in matches, in entire BO3s, in BO1s, in specific maps, and they still just do stuff that they used to do at the beginning of their progression up the ranks. I feel like they still make crazy moves and do crazy things that are just never going to work in a month of Sundays, and that just catches them out against the big boys. I have no idea who they would change if they were going to change someone, because I'm not maybe as I know the Mongolian scene to a decent extent, but I don't know who on earth would slot in if they were ever going to make a replacement happen. But they have Senzu still goes missing a bit too much. I think Blitz and Techno are fine, but Mzinio's struggling a bit. Mzinio's kind of dropped back. Mzinio's kind of dropped back to the level that he was at. he's regressed. He was doing really well for a while. I know it's obviously coincides with the whole team playing better and feeling better, blah blah blah. But he was doing better for a while. He wasn't like going 6 and 17 every game. He's not now, but he was really doing a great job in the roles he was in. He was evolving as a player and as a person very quickly. That coincided with Mongol's upturn. I don't think Mongol's necessarily had a huge downturn, but he has regressed back to how he was before. And it really pains me to say it, but I do think if they're going to start winning events, they might need a change for maybe MZ. I mean, I love the dude so much. He's so cute, but babyface assassin and all that. But he might need to go. Simple as that.
It's so curious that you say Mizzino and not Techno, but
Okay.
I kind of understand why you wouldn't pick Techno in a weird way. Because he's like,
can you explain that?
I mean, Techno is, I mean, one, he's the longest standing member of the Mongolz alongside Blitz. Has been since what I see, maybe even I think Checkmate actually. So I mean, he's worked with these guys through all the different iterations, from when he was a literal child, to now in his 20s. The problem that you have is that I actually think Mizzino doing bad has more to do with the variance of Senzu than actually Mizzino himself. Like, Mizzino, to me, is a supplementary player. Senzu is kind of set up to be a star in a way, especially with the amount of space he sometimes takes, or sometimes that Blitz takes in his place, or even Techno. I think one of the problems for the Mongolz is that they actually, on some of their maps, are a little bit interchangeable. Like, they work off of spawns, and they try and work their roles around that. And it doesn't always work. It's weird to think that Inferno used to be one of their best maps. It's now arguably one of their worst. And I think actually a lot of that has to do with some of the decision making, but Senzu is and always has been a high variance player. Like, he cannot be a sustainable star in the long term. You need somebody to be that for the Mongolz, and unfortunately, they look down the roster and they don't actually have anybody. Techno was and could have been that guy for a while. He still technically can be like this. I think the problem is this team is actually genuinely so young that even now, when we're being like, oh, doom and gloom, that you just replace people on the roster, these guys actually could still have very long, successful careers. They could just blossom when they hit 22 or 20, 23. These guys are still so early in their careers. And I think I have the same problem. The Mongolz don't necessarily have a good pipeline of talent to look at, aside from maybe another roster like the Huns, for example. And that's probably the best place that they could search for other talent, unless they want to find another child in an internet cafe somewhere.
Then repeat some of the same issues they have with the growing pains, trying to teach a kid how to play top tier CS, then also teach them how to play on a stage. It's so difficult to do what they've done. That's why it's part of the reason why it's been so impressive, and why we've given so much credit to Mara and Blitz.
It's just I just can't say Techno, because you mentioned how they're all so young. He might have been in the team since the very beginning, but I still put him in that category. He might even be. He's 20 years old and he's the experienced head of the team alongside Blitz, but I still put him in that category of a player who could still peak. I don't think Mzinho is the kind of player that could move into a role where he peaks into something and blossoms into something huge, like Senzu, Techno, and the others still can, I think.
And I think that's the thing, is that Techno does actually step up in those moments. In the big stage games, I actually see better games from Techno than essentially any of the other games before it. He does have almost like a symbolic nature to the Mongolz, where if in the absence of Mizzino or in the absence of Senzu, sometimes Techno is the guy that Blitz can actually kind of suitably rely upon to be a playmaker. Where sometimes they freeze up and Senzu's doing Senzu shit and everyone else is trying to pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
Techno does that.
I have a friend who watches every single Mongolz game, and they would genuinely, if they were asked this question, would just genuinely summarize it like I kind of started as a semi-joke. If they just did, I don't know what it is, But if they don't troll these rounds that they troll that are like unlosable, like, it's hard to put my finger on what they are, but just the things that happen to them to make them lose the rounds the way they do. I don't think any other teams lose rounds the way they do sometimes. And it's hard to describe what that is, but I kind of agreed with my friend at the time when he described that to me. It's still the young team composure that they still have an issue with, and that is why, even though I said what I said earlier, I kind of agree with you with the fact they kind of have to stick together and work through it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not a techno hater, but I hate how much leeway techno gets. Is more the frustration I have, because I think he has freedoms and rights essentially in this team that other players don't, partially because of his experience and tenure with the coach in the IGL. And so he gets to try to go for little smoke pushes and try to make plays. And more often than not, I'm watching a guy walk into a certain death because he's not that good at it. is really the frustration. I agree with a lot of people's defense of him in terms of his mechanical ability. And it's a similar defense / case you make for when Bit has a downtime. Like, if Bit has 6 bad months in Na'Vi, you're like, yeah, but he's the only player on Na'Vi who could ever be a superstar. Techno's the same, except I just use the word star. Like, I don't think he's quite on that level, but it's a similar concept. I'm just slowly getting more and more annoyed, watching him take cheap deaths and watching everyone go, but he's so sharp. It's like, I don't care. He's getting shot in the side of the head, exiting a smoke every 2 rounds. I don't care how sharp he is with his gun. He's clearly dull where it counts. So please stop running defense for him. And yeah, I understand fully why people don't want to cut him. And I honestly don't have a solution in terms of who you bring him in for. So I don't get too vocal with that. I get frustrated by that specific aspect of it.
It just seems like he's like the irreplaceable, cool uncle in the team. And it's like, the uncle has a lot of potential, but he doesn't realize it a lot of the time. He's too busy having a good time.
20-year-old unk, dude.
I know, but compared to these actual children on the team.
I know, dude. I turned 29 in under a month. Come on.
I am 29.
You're both old. I'm still 27 for 2 days.
No, incredible.
Oh my god, man.
Man, these geezers I have on the call with me. Wow.
Crazy. Yeah. Can I say one very quick thing? I don't know if we're going to touch on them too much. I just would like to say something about Liquid.
If you want, yeah, go nuts.
I just want to say it won't happen ever. I don't think they're going to do it, but I think NAF needs to go and needs a break from everything. He's been playing so bad in some of these big games, like going literally 1-17 more than once, and looking like he's completely. I realize this is the NAF way. He's the sloth meme. He barely reacts to much. He's starting to get a little bit of reactions, like doing the middle finger stuff and trying to be a bit more funny. But if he's gonna go 3-17, maybe be like a. Try and fix your attitude a little bit and be like a positive influence on the team when none of the other players on the team seem to be gelling or looking like they want to play the game whatsoever. I think he needs a mental break. Get him out of there. Don't even fix Liquid. It's pointless at this point. I jest. But I need NAF to go for a bit. Take a mental break. It sounds
to me you want JKS to be the vibes guy. NAF is not supposed to be the vibes guy.
I know he's not supposed to be the vibes guy, but he doesn't have to be the negative vibes guy. He doesn't have to be the negative vibes guy. He can be just like a nothing guy, like he used to be. But now he's being negative as well.
Sure. Yeah, at least try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any idea what? Do you just make Liquid North American again and get the Liege back? Is that what we're going to be doing here?
Me and T have had this conversation a little bit on our other show. So I think we talked about Liquid for some reason.
Counterstocks on Skin Club.
Just
on Skin Club.
Just shitting on Liquid, really. Well, we're shorting Liquid, I'm pretty sure. And part of it is also dude, what happened to Nerds, man,
He's
as
gone.
well?
He's broken.
The thing is, I already had critiques of Nerds from Heroic, where I thought he was just he was a win more player. When they had advantages, when they had good position, he would win rounds for you more consistently. but he wasn't the main source of like what got them into that position in the first place. It was basically like team do most of job, he hit shot, and they win round, which is great. But now it just seems like while they're in this downward spiral, like I can't even get like Nert's playmaking. It just looks like it just falls so flat. Like in a weird way, I'm more frustrated at Nert's than I am at NAF, even though NAF is justifiably having, and has had for the longest slump of his career. Like Nert's is not supposed to like fall into that trap of, I just don't think he should fall into the spiral alongside the rest of the team.
And the thing is, if Nertz leaves, I'm not going to pretend that, every single player who's left Liquid has gone on to great things. Patsy, Rainwaker, examples. But I genuinely think if Nertz left and went to a team that was like a bit more chiller to begin with, and molds around him a little bit better, he'll be a Yakindar. He'll improve and go back to how he was.
And this is the thing. We talked earlier about MOUZ. Nertz to MOUZ is not terrible for Jimmy. You put Spinks in Jimmy roles, maybe, but that I like.
I'm wild, but I get it.
I'm saying that's not the craziest idea in the world. Like you've got triple Israeli synergy. They can actually take part in the Asia MRQ, like in Asia rankings.
Would they want to though?
I don't know.
I don't have
all the answers. I don't have all the answers, but I'm just saying, like, for the type of player that he is, I don't think it would be terrible.
It's wild, but I get it. Like, I understand your logic at least. I don't know.
I absolutely hate it, obviously, but I'm just...
This is me as a skill cell for a moment.
There you go.
Yeah, no, that's
can
not
be
skill
so
cell
good.
though, because Nertz is Nertz is
But he can
weird.
be so good.
Like he's such a weird player to watch. Because I watched him against the kids they lost to the other day, and it's like he'd alternate rounds between just outthinking them and then hitting the shots, and that's great. And getting both outthought and out-aimed by these kids, where I'm like, is he actually elite at anything, or does he just kind of fudge it?
I understand that's the worst loss in possibly Liquid's entire organization's history, but I think you're putting a little bit too much weight on like a dumb online game. I know they look terrible.
I don't care. You can't. Even if you're playing loosey-goosey, puggy nonsense, let's just clear the lines, boys, just have a chill, try and beat this academy of 12-year-olds. I don't care if it's not your A game. Your C game should win that.
I agree entirely.
You're Liquid.
I know. I do agree with that.
An orc who's RNG away from a major victory. Like, you are supposed to be better than this.
Simply do not provide ammunition to those you don't want to shoot.
Or be shot by, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. I'm frustrated.
I understand. It's valid. Having kept an eye on that game as well. I can't disagree with you. It's embarrassing, but again, like knowing the mood in Liquid's camp, like they would have woken up in the morning, or like, well, not even that. They would have seen the game coming up in the future, like, oh god, we're gonna lose to these guys, aren't we? And we're gonna get destroyed on social media. And like, because that's just the mood in the camp right now. Like they can't. It's just all negative energy. So yeah, I'm just whatever. Like,
to be honest, I'd be more surprised if it wasn't. Oh, we've been getting shit on, but we have this easy game against BB Prodigy later. Let's just get the win and move on with our lives.
Yeah, just like Sashi. God. Oh wait, they lost that game too.
Oh right, they lost that as well.
Yeah.
I mean. I wish they lost to a good tier 2 team and not Sashi. I mean, that would at least been something, but...
I don't know, man. Sashi have got the future of Danish CS.
I think the joke is that there's no one on the team that's the future of Danish CS.
I mean, the hope is dying. Even in my boy Zyphon, my hope is dying. The flame is no longer burning.
He'll be the next one to go to Astralis, and Hooksy will fix him again. It's all good.
Maybe.
It's all good.
Dude, I remember when we were talking about Zyphon as like the forgotten child of Copenhagen Flames, and now we're just like, let's actually just forget about him.
Yeah, it's just the craziest part about the Zyphon part. This is a complete tangent. Is when he had a stand-in period on Heroic, right?
I remember that,
and played better than some of the other guys on the team. Like he played better than Dupree and Tessus and Shush. And then he came out of it just like, no one wants him, though. He played on this barren wasteland of a team. Like, at some point, you just think, is he a dick? Like, he must be a dick if he can't even get signed off the back of that. So, no. Yeah, that Sashi loss was a completely separate travesty that we want to erase from our memories.
I'm sorry for bringing up Liquid at all, but I just thought it'd be... Well, to be fair, it was funny and it was good content, so there we are.
Yeah, occasionally it is funny to bring up. I don't know how to be polite about it, so I'm just not going to go too far, because I know I'm about to go right off the edge.
This is the bounty format, letting us talk shit about the teams that are the hunters.
True. But on that note, on that positive, joyous note, we will wrap up the show. Thank you so much, Trav, for coming on. These picks have been made. Let us know in the comments if you'd have made the same ones. I feel like we played it pretty much by the book, down the straight and narrow. There was no crazy, outrageous pick here, so I think we're pretty safe. We're not going to get flamed this week. But yeah, so if you want more content, leave a like if you enjoyed. Remember that members get access to a bunch of extra content and rights, which apparently people love. So join up. We'll see you next time.